Hi, I've gone ahead and added another short story to this course, to the Week 1, Unit 1 material, because I found one from our open textbook, right, our non-cost textbook, that really lends itself very, very well to the critical theory that I'm talking about in this unit. It lends itself particularly well to a Marxist critique, because this story is about power, the disparity of power. So with all literature, it really helps to know the background, to learn the background, and sometimes the literature itself teaches you the background. And this short story by William Faulkner, a premier American author, really tells a story about economics, it tells a story about history, and it tells a story about geography. And these are all very, very important elements. Literature teaches us these things, okay? So briefly, because some of the background here is not well known to everybody, or it's not always studied, and we have a wide variety of students in this class, okay, with a wide variety of backgrounds, I want to give you a little bit of history. So the deep south of the United States is basically Georgia, South Carolina, some of North Carolina probably, Alabama, Mississippi, those kinds of states, kind of congregated towards the southeast section of the United States. And this was the heart of slavery, right? And so after the Civil War, two things happened. Black African Americans went back to the land to farm, just like they had been doing, all right? But of course they farmed for no wages. But they farmed now under a system called sharecropping. And at the same time, poor whites, and there were lots and lots of poor whites in the South, also were sharecroppers. And sharecropping meant that you actually worked land that belonged to somebody else. It was not your land, all right? And so you had to buy the seed from the company store or from the owner. You had to buy the fertilizer, if they had any fertilizer. Okay, often they didn't. You had to buy everything you needed from the owner of the land, all right? And then you farmed. And it was hard farming in the South. The land had already been overworked by cotton, been ruined practically by cotton. If you farm land too much with the same crop all the time, it sort of self-destructs. It doesn't do well, okay? So what this did is this kept people really poor. They had to work the land, and the owner took part of the crop, shared the crop, to compensate for the seed and the feed and other things, and also to compensate for sort of rental of the land, all right? So this was called sharecropping. So you had poor blacks who were sharecroppers, African-American sharecroppers, and then you had poor whites who were sharecroppers. And at the top, you had landowners, which is the way slavery worked in the first place. This was almost a new form of slavery, done over again, but under the guise of freedom, and it was called sharecropping. So you had two competing groups that were the very bottom of the scale of society. You had the poor whites, you had the poor blacks, and they were competing with each other, all right? So this became like the original class warfare, okay, which the United States is consumed by now, all right? So you had this huge income disparity, which was always the case in the South. The South always had the wealthy slave owners, extremely wealthy, right? And then you had this underclass of white people who weren't doing very well, but were doing better than the slaves, all right? And then, of course, you had the slaves. And all the Civil War did was allow the slaves to be free, but they still had to work to eat, right? And they didn't own any land, so they became sharecroppers, and then suddenly they're competing with the white sharecroppers. So you get this. So this story is about that, and this story is about a young boy trying to discover his own identity in this world, okay, of sharecropping. So his dad is a sharecropper. The boy is watching all this play out and not understanding what's going on, and this is called barn burning. All right, so I really think you'll enjoy this story. I certainly do, and I'm really glad I discovered it. That's why I added it at this point from our textbook, all right? And so please consider it. It really lends itself well to this Marxist critical theory, where it's about power struggles, it's about economic disparity. That's what Marxist theory is about. It's not about communism, okay? So hey, enjoy this story. I think it's one of the best in the whole unit, all right, the whole class. So let me know if you have questions. Thank you.